First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for blowing up on my wife for spending $8,000 on a motorcycle for my stepson? I have been with my wife for over 6 years. I have a 17-year-old stepson and a biological 22-year-old son. The family had ups and downs just like any other family. My son is getting married in February. I have put some money aside to help him out as a gift from me for his wedding. I've already talked to him about it, and he and his fiancée said they appreciate it very much. My son deserves it because before his mom died, he took over her care and spent nights at a hospital with her. He cried many times because his mother's death broke him. I'm glad he found happiness again. My stepson is a motorcyclist / it started off as a hobby. He has posters of all kinds of motorcycles, pictures of famous racers and motorcyclists. He has a group of friends he calls brothers, and they ride together and wear some kind of bracelets that represent the group. He always does 3D arts and logos, which I find stunning, to be honest. He's talented, no question about it. Anyway, before Christmas, his mom told me she wanted to get him a motorcycle as a Christmas gift and he'd love it so much. I told her I can't afford it, and that maybe she should think of another gift for him. Everything was fine until Christmas Day while we were exchanging gifts. My stepson received a small box from my wife that had a key in it. We were confused. She told him to go outside and we all followed, and then I saw a brand new motorcycle in the driveway. I started wondering where she got the money. I didn't bring it up right there and then. I waited a bit. I asked my wife and she told me that she took $8,000 from the account to buy the motorcycle. I freaking lost it. I blew up on her and asked if she was kidding me. $8,000? That's the money I put aside for my son's wedding. She said that I needed to calm down, but the money was already gone. My son showed up and asked what was wrong. I couldn't tell him his stepmom took the money that was meant for him to buy an expensive motorcycle that I'm sure my stepson will throw in the garage just like he did the old ones in a very short time. So far, he had 2 motorcycles that ended up being damaged. Those motorcycles cost us so much money other than paying for spares and parts that needed repairing. I told my wife she has 2 days to return the motorcycle and get the money back. And she defended herself, saying she can't do that because it'd be devastating for my stepson, and that he'll resent me if he knew I made her return the motorcycle. I told her that I was ready to talk to him and explain if that's what it takes, and she started crying, saying I was okay with my stepson's spirit crushing like that. I told her it was her fault for taking money in the first place without telling me. She went upstairs and stayed there the entire night. I haven't even talked to my son yet, and it's so exhausting since my wife says I'm being cruel to my stepson. Problem is, she says my stepson will resent me if I return the motorcycle. Now, for the top comments of this post. Not the a-hole. What? She bought a motorcycle for $8,000. Never mind using money that's not hers, and expected you to just be okay with it? Huge red flag. There was no respect for boundaries here. 1. She spent $8,000 after discussing it with OP, who told her that they didn't have the money to spare. 2. She took money that she most likely knew was for the oldest son's wedding, her stepson, and spent it on a lavish gift for her own bio kid, thus demonstrating once and for all that OP's oldest child is not a priority to her. 3. Even if the money wasn't already promised to help pay for a wedding, spending $8,000 on one of your kid's casual hobbies is sending a clear message to the older kid. Not the a-hole. Financial infidelity is just as damaging to a marriage as physical infidelity, in my humble opinion. I'd be thinking some serious thought about what is going on in your wife's head. Like, how did she think you would react? Why didn't she care? And was she actively trying to sabotage you from contributing to your son's wedding? Not the a-hole. Here's the thing. If someone gave me an $8,000 gift and I found out it was using someone else's money, I would be angry that the gift giver stole from someone else. I wouldn't resent the victim. Take a good minute to think about that. If your stepson had any decency, there would be no chance he'd resent you. Don't feel bad about insisting on your wife coming up with the entire amount back somehow. I doubt you'll get the whole amount back from the motorcycle. It sounds like the wife is already planning on framing it as though it's Opie's fault, and that's why she's using the "he'll resent you" manipulation. If I were you, OP, I would talk to stepson. Now, for the next story. Am I the a-hole for buying my friend's childhood home? I've got a friend, Kay, that I've known since we were 5, and now we're in our mid-30s. We used to be close, but after uni, he moved to the US for work, so we only talk occasionally. In fact, I see his parents more often than I see him. Because pre-pandemic, his dad would get the same train as me into London, and sometimes we'd sit together. Anyway, me and my wife had a kid, and would like one more at least, so we're looking to buy a house. We currently live in a 2-bedroom flat and it's getting small. We were looking at listings online when I came across my friend's childhood home. Turns out, his parents were looking to downsize and were selling their house. Honestly, it was perfect for us. 5 bedrooms, garden space, close to the station. They'd even had a special line laid into their house for super high-speed internet. Something like 5 to 10 gigabytes per second down. Seeing this, I phoned up my friend's dad and asked him about the house. He was very open to the idea of selling it to me, and even said he was glad it was staying in the family. Our families are also close. We dealt with each other directly, without an estate agent, and therefore he was able to give me a nice discount. All of that was in October, but my friend Kay has been livid ever since. He keeps saying how I'd bought his childhood, and I was taking advantage of his parents by having paid them less. His sister, on the other hand, was happy for me. And on lieu of a housewarming party, sent my family a framed picture of our 2 families from when we were about 10 or so. While I didn't do anything wrong legally, I feel I may have stepped on Kay's toes by now living in a place where he grew up. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. As someone whose dad is about to put my childhood home on the market, I would love if someone of my friends could buy it. It's getting sold regardless. The price that you and friend's father agreed upon must have been fair, or else I doubt he would have sold. You'd think it would be a bonus that friend could still visit his childhood home. If you have the ability to go there one last time before it sells, I recommend trying the Marie Kondo method of saying goodbye to stuff. When my parents were selling my childhood home, we had to downsize a ton of childhood memorabilia, and our method of thanking things was helpful. It felt crazy at first, but freeing. When I spent my last day there, I went around and touched all my favorite places in the house and thanked them for the memories I made there. Saying goodbye to a childhood home can be a bit of a grieving process. Well, I can understand why Kay feels a little weird about it. You were not the a-hole. The nostalgia is no reason for you not to buy the house. Moreover, you didn't take advantage of his parents since the discount you got was the money they now didn't have to pay to the middleman. I don't know what Kay's problem is, but it's not you. This for sure, realtors take a large chunk of money when you work with them. The OP and a friend's father working together essentially cut that cost out and was able to give the OP a discount. Sounds like a win-win for everyone. Not the a-hole, obviously. Friend needs to grow up. If he felt that strong about the house, he should have bought it himself. Also, it's just a house, not his actual childhood. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for backing out of an agreement I never made? 2 months ago, my dad, 54 male, approached me with an opportunity to buy a female Labrador puppy from his friend, let's call him Joe, who shows and breeds pedigree Labradors. According to my dad, Joe is offering me the Labrador puppy for a heavily discounted rate, $80, because I was his friend's daughter. Nothing else was mentioned to me about why the puppy was so cheap, but I assumed my dad's friend Joe was just being generous. Looking back, I was definitely naive, but I'd been wanting a Labrador pup for a long time, and the offer was just too good to pass up. That same day, I drove over 2 hours to Joe's farm to collect my new 3-month-old Labrador puppy and signed a paperwork transferring the ownership of the pup to me. Joe never mentioned anything else about the terms of the sale, and I never signed any other paperwork or contract regarding further terms. I want to stress that in the period directly after the sale, neither Joe or my dad discussed with me the apparent extra terms I had supposedly agreed to, until recently. I mentioned to my dad that I had booked Jennifer, name of pup, for her desexing next month, and my dad immediately told me I had to cancel. He went on to explain that he had agreed, on my behalf, to allow Joe to use my Labrador to breed more pups for him to sell. This is apparently why I was able to buy Jennifer for such a discounted rate. I was shocked, but frankly not surprised since my dad has a long history of neglecting to mention important details, / lying by omission. As far as I'm concerned, I never agreed to these terms, so I'm not bound to them. Dad and Joe may have had a verbal agreement, but I am the legal owner of Jennifer and there was no verbal, nor written, agreement between me and Joe, so I don't care. I called Joe and made it crystal clear to him that I absolutely was not planning to breed Jennifer, let alone give him the puppies to sell. He was upset, called me a few choice names, and demanded I pay back the difference between the discounted rate and the normal rate for Jennifer, since I wasn't breeding her for him. I refused, because I legally own Jennifer now, and the sale is over. If he wanted me to breed Jennifer, he should have talked to me about this personally because I was the buyer, not my dad. Joe is apparently fuming, and my dad is angry because he doesn't understand why it's a big deal. And other extended family members who know Joe think I'm being a witch and should at least pay him back the difference. But I honestly just don't feel like I'm obligated to. It's their fault, especially Joe, for not mentioning these extra terms to me before the sale. He's the seller and he should know better when conducting his business. Also, according to the agreement, I would have to breed Jennifer whenever Joe wanted, so I'm guessing non-stop. Plus, Joe would not have to pay for Jennifer's medical expenses when pregnant, and that would all come out of my pocket. Hard pass. Not at A-hole. Make sure you have your dog chipped and some sort of tracking device on the collar. I wouldn't trust Joe or your father not to try to take the dog back. Maybe also look into getting some cameras put up at your place. Small tattoo on the dog. It makes it easier to know it's your dog, and microchip can slip placement. I'd honestly do both though. Not at A-hole. Have your dad pay the difference, as he was the one who deliberately lied by omission. Not at A-hole. The dog is your dog, and you do not owe anyone anything. You are absolutely correct that if the terms of the sale included making the dog available for breeding, that the transfer of ownership paperwork needed to include that information. It didn't, and nothing else was signed. There isn't anything anyone can do illegally. Do be careful though, because I wouldn't put it past a scorned backyard breeder, and frankly that's what he sounds like with his attempt to force you to breed dogs for him, to steal your dog. Make sure that she's never outside alone. Be careful at dog parks. Be sure she's chipped. And be clear with any groomers, daycare, or boarding centers that you and only you are to pick up your dog. Not at A-hole. He sounds like a backyard breeder who doesn't actually care about the health of the breed. Real breeders would charge extra for a puppy with breeding rights and a legal document would be drawn up. You should only breed a female dog 3 times or else it'll start to heavily impact her health. He doesn't care about the health of these dogs. Go through with the desexing and don't pay that guy anything. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to spare a cent for a guy who desperately needs money for HIV medication? I, 30 female, shared a flat with my friend 28 male a couple of years back. We got along very well, and I would even help him with his projects at uni, occasionally tutor him in subjects he wasn't good at. I never needed nor asked for help in return. Well, the day I was set to move out of our flat, I packed up all my stuff. We never had issues of stealing in our flat during the few years we lived together, so I was shocked when I got to my new residence and found that around $150 was missing from my wallet. I was just about to start a new job, and I'd really needed that money. I texted him about it, and at first, he pretended to play dumb, but eventually admitted to it before blocking me on all social media. I felt extremely betrayed, because even though it wasn't that much money, I trusted him and considered him a sibling. Always dropped whatever I was doing to help him whenever he needed it. And he thanked me by stabbing me in the back? Well, recently he messaged me on Facebook. Apparently, he has HIV. This part is true. A mutual friend corroborated it. He wanted to sincerely apologize for what he did, and is asking to borrow money to buy medication. He promises that he'll return it eventually, and even included all this mushy stuff about how I was the only one who was ever nice to him, and he always regretted stealing from me. How it was the worst mistake of his life, etc. I said no. Unfortunately, I still am not over what he did. He said he understood and stopped the convo. Mutual friend called me an a-hole for not helping a guy with HIV, even just a little bit since I have a stable career now, etc. But from my point of view, what this guy did really cut me to the bone. $150 was a lot to me back then. Still is, actually. And I simply want nothing to do with him because of what he did. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Answering a few questions in the comments. Why won't mutual friend give money? Mutual friend has no stable job but knows I have some cash to spare. Is ex-roommate a drug addict? I don't know. The possibility did cross my mind, but having lived with him for a time, I never got the impression he did substances. I never lost anything in that flat until he stole from me while I was moving out, which is why it was such a big shock to me. I never thought he'd do something like that. What about the $150? He never paid me back, never told me why he stole from me and what he used it for. Sadly, if he had told me he needed to borrow some cash, even though I was struggling financially then, I would have found a way to scrounge up some money to lend to him. Can't he buy his own meds / get them for cheaper? Unfortunately, I live in a country where healthcare is expensive, and not being able to afford medication is a prevalent issue here. Now for the judgment. Not A-hole. Tell him you already lent him $150, and instead, you were waiting for it to be returned. Very telling, the guy only apologized for stealing when he needed more money from Opie. Not A-hole. He betrayed your trust, and even if he hadn't, you still have no obligation to help him. It's your money. Not A-hole. Trust is a very strong yet fragile thing. Once broken, it's very difficult to fix it. Your trust has been broken, and now he's reaching out to you for help. There is no obligation on your part to help him now if you don't want to. Also, he stole from you when you needed the money. Why is he expecting your help now? I think you hit the nail on the head in the fact that he broke Opie's trust. This ex-roommate has also not shown that he can be trusted again. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you with the next one. Stay safe.